Welcome to chaos. Is Linus tech tip noobs? Are they scrubs? We're about to find out here. Heads, yep. Can't say I'm surprised there. Let's break it down. This laptop here, $1,000. MSI blew it out of the water with this thing. This thing is so awesome. And it's running Fedora. Why don't we just go ahead and take a look at this video here of Linus's review of Linux.
I feel like I've got to start this by explaining my brain-dead choice of PopOS. It was amazing how many people got angry at me for picking the same distro that screwed me over last time.
PopOS? What even is that, bro?
System 76 has spent the last couple of years hard at work on a new desktop environment, Cosmic, and it's been a challenge.
Linus, Cosmic is basically in beta.
A beta desktop environment? Oh, this is gonna be good. I can already tell. This is the most corporate take I've ever seen. The worst competitor, and then be like, oh yeah, look how awful this is. Dude, what even is PopOS? Come on, guys. Doesn't even use KDE or GNOME. That is not newbie friendly at all. To be thrown a beta desktop environment. This is crazy. This is actually crazy.
I had a Windows game drive previously that I just kind of left alone and tried to use on Linux, which means that it was formatted in NTFS. And everything seemed fine at first. Some games even ran okay. But I started to notice some glitches, and even some games that I had freshly installed on that drive, it just wouldn't work. It would just, you click play and it just wouldn't launch sometimes.
Bro, not NTFS, dude. Oh my God. New technology file system. Dude, that file system is like 20 years old. Linux is like way up here, like in the freaking clouds compared to that. That is just crazy, bro. You literally can't fault Linux for NTFS stuff. That is completely unfair. If there's anything wrong with the NTFS drivers, that's Microsoft's responsibility. There you go. They probably don't even do anything. It's probably all reverse engineered. I'm not even going to look into it because last thing I want to do is research anything Microsoft.
I wanted to stream it, but I was getting no audio and no picture. Proton, which is the compatibility layer that allows non-native Linux titles to work on Linux, is missing proprietary licenses for H.264 and H.265 video codecs. What was the solution? A community fork called Proton GE, which thankfully was in the Bazzite store. That's a pretty simple fix, but it's also one that highlights how unrealistic some Linux evangelists can be about the experience. No, in many cases, it doesn't just work out of the box, and users who don't treat fixing their operating system as a hobby will be looking for someone to blame for this hassle. So is it Linux? Valve? Mob Entertainment? The user? Maybe all? Or, hear me out, none? It's easy to jump on the blame bandwagon and hate on some developers for not prioritizing Linux. But ask yourself this, if 50% of your customers were on Windows, and the other 48% are on Xbox and PlayStation, would you be stoked on hiring a fourth group of employees whose job it is to deal with the other 2%? Especially knowing that those 2% are not running one OS, but are probably running different flavors of OS? I mean, maybe you would, but it's more important to remember that just like the users, many companies don't treat fixing operating systems like a hobby.
I'm sorry to say, bro, but you completely missed the mark here. The reason that H.264 and H.265 are not playing back for you is because Linux is a free operating system through and through. So if you want to run H.264, H.265, all of those run in Windows and Mac just fine because it's part of the operating system's licenses. They're the ones that pay the licensing fee. If you want to do it on Linux, it's as simple as installing the proper dependencies that allow you to play H.264 and H.265. It's literally just a matter of going into the Snap Store, or you might have to do it through the command line depending on your distribution, and selecting the proper one.
Bazzite has different versions of their installer, depending on the brand of your GPU and whether or not you want the SteamOS full screen experience. Well, I've got an Nvidia GPU, and yeah, I want that experience. That's kind of the point of it on a home theater PC. So I picked this one. And let's put it this way. The Bazzite team feels that I should have known the one that I selected would result in a completely unusable experience. But to me, that's actually not that obvious. Coming from the Windows, Google, normie world, where a stable service like Gmail was labeled beta for 5 years, it's not that unreasonable to think that you can daily drive a beta and have a mostly functioning experience. In Linux, that's an expectation that needs to be completely thrown out the window. Here, beta seems to mean this is broken, and if you're not a developer, you should probably just download the LTS, which might also be beta. Ha ha!
Bazzite is a Fedora-based Linux distribution designed to be similar to Valve's SteamOS 3, while still functioning as a normal computer. Let me translate this out of leet speak for you. It's Fedora with a bunch of scrubs that messed everything up. That's crazy. You set this up for a fail.
To get my system up and running, I ended up doing what many Linux people do and switching to a Radeon card, which was completely painless.
Why run Bazite when I could just run SteamOS on the Steam machine that we built on this channel like a couple months ago? I can't believe I forgot about this thing. I've been meaning to install it.
I actually ended up throwing SteamOS on my home theater PC.
Nice. Okay, is it a bit of a hack to just switch out your hardware? Yes, but also no, because a lot of Linux gamers would go out of their way to choose compatible hardware in the first place. So I'm pretending I did that.
Getting the Nvidia drivers working. Oh, that always separates the wheat from the chaff. I installed the Nvidia drivers offline on my last computer. Initially, I installed onto my desktop, then went to a coffee shop with that as a USB drive plug-in, because it's just a hard drive to USB. And then I went to a coffee shop because I don't have internet at my place, installed it, installed the Nvidia drivers, came back to my place, and of course there were incompatibility problems. Had to run a couple of commands to reprobe the kernel, and Bob's your uncle, it worked fine. If you can't get the Nvidia drivers working when you have internet at your house, just throw in the towel, bro. Just throw in the towel. You're looking mighty goofy right now.
I think there are some obviously extremely bright lights in the Linux community that bring a lot of hope and joy and fun to the whole experience of learning Linux, but there is a lot of negative communication on forums, on Reddit, elsewhere.
Bro just listed off Reddit as toxic. Dude, there's no Reddit that isn't toxic. Like, that is the meme right now, that Reddit is a joke and everybody hates it. And the only people that like Reddit are Redditors. It's gotten flooded by bots too, so it's useless. It is a useless platform. As far as forums are concerned, that's got to be entirely distro specific, because every single time I've been on a forum, everybody is extraordinarily professional and they always direct you very quickly. Some of the smaller distributions are going to, take their time, and some might not even solve more complex issues.
I use Adobe Premiere for editing, and one of the many fun ways that Adobe is kinda is that it just doesn't work on Linux. Now, I tried messing around with Bottles a bit, which allows you to run Windows software on Linux, but that was obviously still a no-go.
Virtualizing a video editing program? Oh my God, bro. I am so sorry you had to experience that.
Which then sent me looking for alternatives. DaVinci Resolve has a Linux build, though it's only officially supported on Rocky Linux of all things. Still, Rocky Linux is a lot closer to Bazzite than Windows is, so maybe? And yeah, after 2 hours of trying, I got her up and running, but not the way I thought. See, I just tried installing it like a Windows application. Download and run. But Bazzite, as I learned, is an immutable operating system similar to SteamOS. This means core operating system files and permissions are locked down in such a way that the user either can't screw them up, or they can, but then they'll reset themselves after a reboot. Unfortunately, this same lockdown applies to some software installers, which then means that they can't alter the files that they need to. The solution was for me to beat my head against a wall until I found this 6-minute video about a simple command to run.
Yo, that was totally on you, bro. I don't know why you guys decided to pick an immutable OS. Immutable operating systems are for consoles and for scrubs. They're made to not break. And therefore, you can't modify the files because you're going to break it because you don't know what you're doing. But no, not you, but you obviously didn't know what you're doing when you picked this operating system to install DaVinci Resolve on. End of story. If you wanted to install Linux for grandma so she can browse the internet and not have to worry about malware from Windows and immutable operating system, I mean, that's like chef's kiss right there. But other than that, you are literally just creating more work for yourself.
But then I ran into the same problem as Poppy Playtime. Depending on the file that I was trying to play or export, it wouldn't work. Frickin' curse you, video codecs.
You guys are going to bash free software, a free video editing program, because you don't know how to use Handbrake or FFmpeg to convert an MP4 file, as I was discussing earlier. It doesn't come with the operating system. Resolve is not going to give you money. They're not going to be like, oh, this cost us money to have this free version of Resolve. It's mind-boggling. The free version of Resolve is great on Windows and Mac because it has those licenses. And B, didn't you guys just buy a private jet? You guys can't afford $300 to review Linux fairly? This is not a review. This is slop.
And for stills, neither is GIMP. You know what? I'm gonna be the one to say it. GIMP sucks.
Man, I was trying so hard to agree with you guys on something. Yeah, GIMP. Yeah, I ain't defending that. So you probably think I'm just a Linux fanboy at this point, but the reality is, what exactly do you need to do with your computer? Because Windows, Mac, and Linux all have their strengths and weaknesses, some a lot more than others. For example, Apple has a very tight vertical integration because they make hardware and software, and I think that that's admirable. As far as Windows is concerned, the obvious strength is compatibility in gaming. They just had a monopoly from the very beginning on software, so naturally they have the widest range of compatibility, obviously followed by Mac, but I've been using Mac since the 90s, and it's gotten a lot better as far as software compatibility. Back in the 90s, most of the software was shareware, which most of you guys probably don't even know what that is. It's just a before your time kind of thing. Don't worry about it. You're not missing anything. Some fun games, but gaming on a Mac in the 90s, 2000, there was like nothing. There was like nothing at all. It was a meme. The strengths of Linux compatibility with hardware is pretty much the best in the industry, other than Apple, who makes their operating system and their hardware. So they have the tightest knit system, which is why I have a lot of respect for that company. With Linux, a lot of it's sourced out to people. Somebody comes home from their day job and they might write up a little code. So that's actually like a huge problem with Linux. But for the most part, Linux, compared to today, even 5 years ago, versus 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I had installed Red Hat on this giant server that my dad pulled out of a dumpster because it was obsolete. Giant box, giant black box, huge. The thing weighed more than me as a kid. It was massive. It wasn't quite taller than me as a kid, but it was huge. I don't even know what chips it was running, not Mac or Windows chips. The only thing you could install on it was Linux. That was my first experience with Linux. And that was an experience because you literally had to buy an installation manual and flip through the pages to get to all the commands just to install the operating system. It was a lot of work compared to even Arch nowadays has an install script. It's just Linux has come a long, long way. And this video just really bothered me because it completely discredits how insanely easy it is to install Linux. So it really breaks down to what do you want to do with Linux? If you want to run DaVinci Resolve, I'll make a tutorial for you to install it on Linux because it is so easy. Once you understand how to diagnose in Linux, it's so easy. Basically, it's really this simple. A program doesn't open, like you double click on it after installing it and it doesn't open. You literally open that program in the console and then that's your debug. That's where all the errors pop up because if the person who wrote the software didn't make a dialog box pop up, they definitely made something in the console. And that's literally how you solve every single problem. Then you literally just copy and paste that into Google and somebody else has already solved that issue for you. 99.9 repeating. Unless you're doing something extraordinarily fancy on Linux, somebody has already run into that issue. So if you're going to be gaming, I'm sure there's never been a better time to game. It's worth a shot installing some sort of Linux. I would recommend Fedora. Install it and see if the game works. And if not, whatever. But one of the reasons that I installed Linux was because of the battery life. This laptop went from, like 3 hours of battery to like 5 to 6 hours. That's crazy. That's a lot more battery. And the fan like barely ever kicks on. When in Windows, it's like not doing anything at all. And the fan's like spinning full speed. And I'm just like, you're literally destroying my hardware. I paid money for this computer and you're taking the life out of it with your horrible slop, disgusting operating system. This computer, when it had Windows on it, I installed DaVinci Resolve on this thing and it kept crashing. It was lagging. Actually, installing it on Linux, it doesn't completely crash, but it's actually Intel's fault. Intel made some horrible drivers for both Windows and Linux. So it's not even the computer's fault. It's Intel's fault. So they need to hurry up and patch these Intel Arc drivers. But it's probably abandonware at this point because, the new Intel stuff has already come out. But I have Fedora. I actually just recently installed Fedora also on my desktop. Originally, I was using Ubuntu, but I was just getting tired of it. I was getting tired of the bugginess. And so when Linus was showing that he installed Kubuntu, I'm just like, oh, great. All I got to say is Fedora. I've distro hopped a fair number of times and I've landed on Fedora and I've just been blown away with just not only how Apple it is and just like it just works for the most part. Things just worked out of the box that really, really surprised me. Like, for example, on Windows, I can't even control the screen brightness on my desktop. I have to use the stupid little buttons on the screen. But with Fedora, it just is like, oh yeah, you want to adjust the brightness of your screen from the little task manager? Be my guest. Here you go. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know you could do that. That's really cool. It just depends what you want to do for Linux. If you just want to browse the web browsing has always worked in Linux. If you wanted to run some sort of proprietary software that's only for Windows and you were thinking about virtualizing it, just don't. It's not worth the effort. It might be worth the effort to like dual boot if you're like not going to be using that software all the time. But if you're just going to be using the software all the time, you might as well just not switch. I'm using your DaVinci Resolve, no problem, on both my desktop and my laptop. Other than those damn Intel drivers, the Nvidia drivers, they work just fine on my desktop. I appreciate you guys watching. And if you want me to go a little bit more in depth about Linux and if it's right for you, go ahead and drop that in the comment and I will get right to it.